What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast hosted by me, Brandon Davis. This is a podcast to help young entrepreneurs succeed in both their businesses as well as their lives. My whole goal and theory behind this, if you're a new listener out there, is to make sure that if your business succeeds, you're able to use your time, your talents, your resources to give back to other people in your community, be that your friends, your family members, people you've never met before, people at your local church congregation, whatever it may be. You learn to get over yourself after you've hit those major milestones in your business and life, and you're able to give your time and talents back to others. So guys, in today's episode, I want to be discussing a strategy that I recently forgot until I started speaking with my mentor upon moving the needle, hitting the most important items that we need to inside of both our business as well as our life. So stay tuned into today's episode to learn more a little bit about that. But before we jump in, I do want to share a quick update. Ever since the company that I founded, Interval, has been started, it has been a hectic ride to balance everything that is going on inside of my life right now. Finishing up graduation here in April at BYU, running the software company, running this podcast, and other crazy things inside of my life. And as most people know who listen to this kind of show, startups take up a lot of time. So with that being said, up until at least April, I'm moving the podcast from the weekly episodes every single Friday at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're going to be doing them bi-weekly, at least up until April once school stops, and then we'll be hopefully continuing once again on our weekly basis. So with that all being said, let's jump into today's episode. So I recently got off a call with one of my mentors, and I was kind of giving him the update of where Interval is at, where the product stands, how customer acquisition's going, where revenue's at, where the product's going to be in the next couple months. And as I was talking to him, I was sharing all these kind of buzzwords that made me feel good inside. It made me feel like I was hitting certain metrics that to a worldly standpoint sound really cool. And for anyone who's listening to this podcast who is a young business owner, I think you'll understand and appreciate what I'm saying right now. I think sometimes from a worldly perspective, people view entrepreneurs as kind of a weird bunch. And half the time, I totally understand where they're coming from. Most entrepreneurs fail. Most of the time when one of your friends says they're an entrepreneur, it means they don't have a job and they have no idea what they're trying to do with their lives. The other time it means they're a sales rep and they think because they're a sales rep that makes them an entrepreneur. You have these different categories of people in their different stages that say they're an entrepreneur. And so on the worldly view, when you hear of somebody who is quote unquote an entrepreneur, a lot of times that doesn't really mean anything. But then on the opposite side, when you picture an entrepreneur, you picture Bezos, you picture Zuckerberg, you picture Elon Musk, you picture these amazing, very strong, influential figures who have created crazy, awesome businesses. And so on both sides of the coin, there's no good room for a middle ground. And so I preface all of this as I've been finishing up on my last semester at Brigham Young University. I've had quite a few people ask me, what's your plan after you graduate? And it's not always to their ill intention. A lot of the times, though, it's friends, family members, people who know that I've been working on my startup for quite some time. And they say, what's your plans after graduation? And almost every single time when I tell them I'm still just working on my business, that's the plan, not going and working a typical job. Almost every single time there's that slight hesitancy I see inside of their eyes where they're like, what? So what are you talking about? No way you can do that. Like, that's not sustainable, is it? That was really something you were working on? I thought that was just like a fun hobby or something. And you see it in their blink of the eye for just a moment. And I get so used to it at this point, it doesn't really even bother me anymore. But you start to recognize that people are so crafted inside of their molds that they are shocked when the typical standard of, oh, I'm not going to go take a job after college, I'm going to work on my startup. That is such out of the ordinary realm of life that people are often very taken back from it. And so I always see that little glimmer in their eye thinking, what is Brandon getting himself into? This is not going to amount to anything. And on the safe note, yeah, absolutely. A lot of my friends and family members who have gone through school, a lot of my current friends who are graduating that are taking the typical job, all power to them. You're getting your life started. You're going to have a bigger savings account than me for the next couple of years. But at the end of the day, that's the path they're choosing. And the path that I'm choosing is working on this startup. And that's where I find the most safety, the most joy, the most adventure, and the most return, hopefully in the future, the biggest bang for my buck. But I prefaced all that just to kind of get back into this mentor call I recently had. When I was speaking with this mentor, I recognized that a lot of the things that I was telling him about the product updates and everything I mentioned a minute ago, these feature updates, where the product currently stands, where we're going to build it, how many customers we currently have, revenue goals, et cetera, et cetera. Half the things I was telling my mentor had absolutely nothing to do with moving the needle in the actual business. They're great metrics, and on the outside perspective, it's fun little factoids I could throw out there for my friends and family who didn't quite understand what my entrepreneurial journey is going to be like post graduation while I'm working on Interval, the startup. And at the end of the day, they're buzzwords. If I could tell my friends, oh yeah, we're doing X amount of dollars in revenue, we have this many clients, we're building this amazing product out there, and it's going to revolutionize the entire collections industry, and businesses will no longer have customers that owe them money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are all buzzwords that you use to justify your own actions. And so, on the contrary of what everyone is always thinking, when I saw that glimmer of shade inside of their eyes, where they're like, Brandon, are you really doing this after you graduate? I recognized after speaking with my mentor, I was kind of giving them a false hope on my own terms. I would sit there and I would have to justify and validate everything I was doing and explain to them, no, yeah, the business is doing really good. This is why I'm able to do it after graduation. Where at the end of the day, none of that truly matters. It's fine to tell your friends and family that it's going to be okay and your business is actually working. But if it's not moving the needle, it's not important. So outside of the friends and family perspective, if you guys currently have these issues, this might sound very familiar. When I was sitting down with the mentor and telling him about these projections and where I want the goals to be, he simply sat back and said, Brandon, I want you to focus purely on what's going to drive the business forward and move the needle. And at first I was thinking, Mr. Mentor, I won't say names, but Mr. Mentor, this is exactly what I've been telling you for the past 10, 15 minutes. It's every way that I've been moving the needle for the business. But when he said it again, he said, no, what is really going to move the needle? What do you have to get done this week to actually grow the business? And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, you know what? I've not been working on my sales effort very much. That was the moving the needle that I need to focus on. There's so many managerial tasks and just the small day-to-day operations of running a business that takes up way too much time. And inside of that effort, you forget what the real focus is, actually driving revenue and growing your business, growing your startup. At the end of the day, that's how every business succeeds. It's by growing revenue and increasing the amount of value you can provide for your customers. So if you sit there and only work on those little operational tasks, which absolutely most of the time you do need to get them done, but is it the most important thing to get done in this exact moment? So I want to offer this as advice, not only for your startups, for those who are listening out there on today's episode who have businesses themselves, but at the same point, where are you not moving the needle inside of your life? What are the 1, 2, 3 biggest action items you need to take to improve your lifestyle in order to progress forward? And this is something I've been thinking of outside the business, right? After meeting with the mentor, I'm like, okay, I need to stop focusing on these tiny little operational tasks. I need to start focusing on sales. So I've been exploring different sales channels and driving the ones I'm already into. And overall, it's been working so far. But then I thought to myself, okay, where do I need to drive the needle or push the needle, move the needle, if I could say it right? Where do I need to move the needle inside of my life outside of the business? And it came down to a couple things. One was on my spiritual side of things. I recognize I'm like, all right, I have a lot of lofty goals for my worldly desires, growing the business, accumulating certain things inside of my personal life. But my spiritual life wasn't necessarily at the forefront. And I think for me as a Christian, that's very, very important. I need to move the needle in my spiritual relationship with my Savior, Jesus Christ. So since recognizing that, I've been upping my scripture study. I've been praying more. I'm kind of focusing on these like small day-to-day tasks that Christians are supposed to develop in, but sometimes get overlooked because it's so common that you just don't even think about it all the time. So that was one example inside of my spiritual life. Another is actually spending quality time with my wife. A lot of times when I get home, work is still on my mind. I'm still responding to texts and emails, especially while finishing up the last semester of school. I'm still working on homework. And although sometimes those things are unavoidable, I have been trying to be more consistent with my time with her, make sure I'm focused on her, make sure the activities we're doing are actually together. Even if it's as simple as sitting down on the couch or in our bed and watching a show or a movie together, I'm trying to be more intentional with that time. That's how I'm going to move the needle in my social life or in my marriage. So once again, I preface the question, focus it on a side of your business. Where can you move the needle to start driving the growth that you need? Maybe you already have a ton of customers and your revenue is good for the next little bit. Maybe you need to start moving the needle in your customer success, how you actually treat your customers, the metrics you give them, how fast you respond to when they have questions, things like that. It doesn't always have to be revenue driven, but if you're a startup, most likely that is the answer. Likewise, I want you to personally reflect on the outstanding moving the needle problem you may have inside of your day-to-day life. Where do you need to be more impactful for your friends, your loved ones, or anything else? Maybe it's the way you treat your own physical body by going to the gym, and you need to dedicate the 30 minutes to an hour every single day to go hit that. If that's what's stopping you, go move the needle. Use this as your pick me up, as your motivator, as your inspiration. Go figure out what you need to move the needle in starting today, both for your business as well as your personal life. Guys, as always, if you have any questions, my links will be in the episode description below where you can reach out to me. Be more than happy to hop on a call or answer any emails that you guys might have. As well, make sure to follow me on Instagram and other social media platforms at getoveryourself_podcast for more information. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.